is huge. I mean, it's like a man. It's big.
Kane's son.
You still don't understand what you're dealing with, do you? Perfect organism.
Just tell me one thing, Burke. You're going out there to destroy them, right? Not to study, not to bring back, but to wipe them out.
That's the plan. You have my word on it.
All right, I'm in.
Let's rock!
Don't look back, dude! Run as fast as you can!
Look on my works, ye mighty, and despair.
Welcome to Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast. I am your host, Jaime Prater, and I'm joined by my co-hosts,
Patrick Green,
Christian Motska,
Andie girl.
Harry Chicos.
I'm Adam Ezekiel.
Hey, everybody.
Hi. Hello.
Hi.
And
Xander,
welcome.
Of course, providing support in the chat as well.
And welcome to our theatrical trailer reaction episode. We've been waiting on this for a couple of days. No, probably longer than that. But we found out the news that this was going to drop the day Adam and I were at the convention, which was Monster-Palooza, which we're going to get right into. But the trailer's about 2 minutes and 1 second. There's a lot there. We're really excited about it. I've been watching it nonstop. I can't quite believe what I'm watching, to be honest, but I'm excited to get into that. But first, we thought we would just break down a little trip that Adam and I took. Adam flew all the way out here from New York, and we went to Monster-Palooza on Sunday because there was an Alien Romulus panel with Fede Alvarez and Alec Gillis, and I can't remember the name of the other guy. He was an effects guy. Do you remember?
Shane Man.
Shane Man?
Shane Man.
Okay. And yeah, it was really, really great. And we met up with like some Colonial Marines, and we walked around and we found some cool stuff. And we actually were able to hang out with Fede for a little bit briefly before the panel. And just a really lovely guy, really kind, really, really, really super kind. He was there with his assistant, his wife, and his son. And it was a full house for the panel. I mean, it was a huge theater, and it was completely packed. People were lining the walls. And Adam and I had been in there earlier, and there were other panels going on with barely anybody there. But the Romulus panel was probably the most well-attended, and it was pretty extraordinary. What do you think, Adam?
Oh, it was packed. It was a blast. Yeah, it was also the first time you and I met in person, which was also fun and awesome. We got to, like hang around the con over there for a few hours before the panel because we wanted to be ready. We wanted to know, the layout. It was my first time over there also. So, yeah, like you said, like we had this appointment with Fede. We got to spend a few minutes with him because he arrived. He was delayed. And yeah, very warm, very kind, very nice. I was blown away that he knew who I was and what I did. It was insane to me, incomprehensible at all. We chatted for a few seconds about like the uniforms and the hat that he has that I made. Yeah, and then the panel itself started.
And the panel was fantastic. And I don't know if any of you guys here have been able to watch it, but what was fantastic about it was, number one, oftentimes you go to these things and you see these people repeating the same things they repeat in press junkets over and over and over. I know those of you who go to conventions, Andie and Christian, you're probably a little bit familiar with people kind of repeat the spiel over and over and over. But he didn't do that. A few things, yes. But then he got into how he approached Romulus, and he started talking about what it's like to enter a world that he did not create, and the difficulties there and the struggle with that. And he's talked about how do you scare a 40-year-old man. And I love that he brought that up because you don't scare people the same way. And he also talked about like what it's like to watch, like when we all watched Aliens as kids, how it just kind of washed over us. And we were like, yes. But as adults, we bring that 12-year-old version of us with us into the theater, but we have different experiences because we'll watch a film and we'll be like, well, this, well, that, well, this, well, that. And we'll point out things, but our childishness doesn't do that, and it didn't do that for the first couple of films. And I thought that was a really, really great insight. And to me, it just showed me that he understands not just the process of filmmaking, obviously as a filmmaker, but there are plenty of directors and writers out there who make shitty films, who make kind of, bad film after bad film. Well, I won't mention any name. Bumcamp. But to have Fede really understand what it's like as an audience member and know like how difficult it is to scare people, how difficult it is to recreate a world that was created by other people. It was everything that I needed to hear. And I left that telling Adam, like, I'm sold. I'm in. Like, I believed him in it. I believed in him anyways. After that, I was like, okay, this is the man for the job. And as far as I'm concerned, this Alien is his baby now.
Oh, yes, absolutely. It's also connects with that, the few episodes we made about what makes it great or why Alien was so great, breaking that down into the building blocks. And he touched on this aspect in one of in several of his answers. Like, he really understands at the deep level what worked, what were the building blocks that really worked and made those two films. It was just like music to my ears to hear him. I recommend everyone. There's a recording of the panel on YouTube. Maybe we can link it somewhere. It's fantastic.
Yeah, Mike Monahan of Mike's Monsters posted it, and so you can hear the whole panel and all the questions, including Adam asked a really good question, got a great reaction. And taking from that kind of what Jaime was saying, I noticed he talked about how when you're a kid, your approach to these things is more collaborative. You'll take in the new information and figure out how to make that work with what already existed. And I kind of feel like he was asking us to do the same thing. And so I'm really trying to look at that approach now as a better way of doing it. I truly believe that he has done his research. I think that there's a lot of things that we can tell from the books on his bookshelf or who he consulted with that let us know that he has thought these things through. And so when something comes up that, and it's going to come up in tonight's conversation, things that maybe raise a few alarm bells and say, well, hold on, this guy's done his research. Let's bring a collaborative spirit to this conversation.
Can I jump in and just say something really quick too? I thought was really insightful and just really awesome to see Fede talk about is when they asked the panel what their favorite thing was about working with Fede or just like seeing him work. And they had just talked about how similarly to James Cameron, Fede was a director that like gets down on the floor and like plays with the props and he looked like a kid to them doing these things. And then Fede brings up how he was like born in 78. He saw Aliens first, then Alien, like a lot of us here. And I just find it so cool that he has a very similar like origin story to how he experienced the Alien films alongside of all of us, right? So it's almost like he's one of us, right? It's not like Hollywood or the studio just brought a director in to like shoot the next Alien film and partner with Ridley Scott. It's like, no, they found somebody that seems to truly love and care about this franchise, which I just thought was amazing. And yes, Adam, you brought up a great question that I thought he opened Fede up to just like really dive into a lot of detail into the universe and how he made the film in general. So just awesome to see you guys out there. Really cool.
I actually watched it after seeing the trailer, and I was really pleased. I felt like validated because I did really try to go into it with my like 12-year-old eyes. And I forgot what he said exactly, but I remember he said something at the panel about how he knows it's not a real story and he knows it doesn't exist. And yet he wants that feeling that, when you are a kid or, when it's not real, but you still feel like it is and that this world can exist. And when he said that, I was just like, he gets it, and and having seen the trailer and then hearing him say that, I'm like my confidence, not that I didn't have confidence before, but it like shot way up. I'm so excited.
Fede really is, we've been talking for probably a few years about the next film, next whatever, and the person stepping in needing to really understand the nature of the IP, like needing to understand the world, needing to be passionate about it. And here we are, like it materialized. And that's a pretty amazing thing. I mean, of course, we haven't seen the film. We've just seen a teaser and the theatrical trailer, and we're all on board. So hopefully the film delivers, which I feel like it will. But just on the outset, to have someone in the role who isn't just like, they know what they're doing. They're passionate about what they're doing. You're like, yes, this is the movie that I want to make and the story that I want to tell. And in fact, I think in that panel, someone asked him about, is there any other IPs you'd like to kind of enter into? And he didn't really have an answer, but he did say earlier, I think, I don't make a lot of movies, but I really wanted to tell the story. Like, this is something that he pitched to them. He went to Ridley Scott's production company. I can't remember the name of it. Scott Free, I think it's called.
Scott Free.
And he pitched it, and they loved it. So much so that they called him back like a year or so later saying, hey, what was that idea? Let's talk about it. So again, to have someone right now at the helm of this IP who loves it, who understands it intrinsically, who understands all aspects of it as much as anyone can, is awesome.
I really think he's a true fan. And the part of my question, like I thought what to ask. I didn't want it to be too esoteric. It had to be something more general. And I asked him, did he ever play Alien Isolation? And his answer absolutely blew me away, because he said that, yes, he played it 10 years ago. And that was the first, trigger to getting the wheels turning on him thinking, oh, I want to make an alien film. I thought that, the creature isn't scary anymore, but here in this game, it's terrifying. That's what I want to make. And that was incredible. So true fan.
Which leads us to the discussion of the long-awaited theatrical trailer, which we've been waiting on for probably, a good month and a half, maybe. We knew it was coming. We knew it was probably going to be in June. It's about 2.5 months before the film releases. So I'm excited to talk about it.
We all thought it was going to land on Alien Day. That's when we really thought it was going to be. This makes perfect sense. And, when you look at how trailers are released before movies, I guess, but let's just acknowledge that it would have been really great. I've heard some rumbling that the teaser maybe was intended for Alien Day, but was put out earlier because of certain spoilers that had come out. So to try to get ahead of the spoilers, they released the teaser. But what it left us with was a teaser and then a gap before this theatrical trailer that was only filled with some very, very odd still photography being released by Fandango and Empire Magazine and places like that, that while it has the correct actors and the correct costumes and props, it does not look like this footage. And I'm so glad we have this theatrical trailer today to kind of bookend and bolster our belief again, because we were all starting to think something is wrong here. This doesn't look right. And you can actually take some of those still photos and compare them to the scene in the trailer and say, okay, I can see how this is the same location with the same people, but it's like they opened the garage door and let all the light in and had them look in weird directions at the same time. Just really, really bizarre. What do you guys think?
Well, I want to point out, we didn't get it for Alien Day, right? We got it at kind of a weird time, but it is 98 years to the day of the birth of the creature on the Nostromo during the chest bursting scene, which is pretty fucking cool, I have to say. And I think Alien vs. Predator Galaxy pointed that out first. That's just an amazing little thing. Probably was unplanned, but we'll say it was. Just to kind of address the elephant in the room, i.e. those press photos, they're terrible. Like, those publicity stills are in my opinion, like, super cheesy. They look like crap. But as we have discovered, as we've been processing that, there's a pretty long and storied history of alien films having stupid publicity stills. We've shared many of them on our podcasts. Even the original film, it had all those crew shots where they're like doing prom photos, and it's just stupid. It kind of goes with the Hollywood machine, But I will say, it was getting to the point like a week ago where I was like, if I see another like Entertainment Weekly dumbass shot, I'm going to start losing some degree of faith in the final product, because like the teaser looked great, and then everything since then was just really off to me. And then we got like the ultimate resounding no to that question today in the release of the full trailer, which feels instantly not only perfect, iconic. I mean, like all of us, I've been watching this basically constantly today. It just, right before we recorded, I watched it again with the kids before they went to bed. They were freaking out about it. And they're like, Dad, don't take us to the theater to see this. And I was like, okay, all right, that's fine, but we'll watch it at home. This has been like a constant thing today. Just like when the teaser came out, like my phone is basically dead because I've been being texted by so many people about this amazing trailer today. I just checked on YouTube. It's the number one trending trailer, trending video on YouTube currently 9 hours after it came out, which is just incredible. As we kind of have a little tradition at this point because of the teaser trailer, we can talk a little bit about kind of our first feelings, where we were when we saw it, because it is kind of a historic moment for an Alien fan's life. I was on a bike ride. I thought I had timed out the ride perfectly, said I would get home when it came out. It got home about 20 miles early. So I just like ditched the bike. I ran into somebody's yard. I sat under a tree and I watched it on my phone. And I was like, I have to do the fastest ride home I've ever done in my life. And I did. I did a time trial all the way back. I was like, Michael, we have to watch this. We have to watch this. And we sat down and put it on the big screen. Oh my God, my heart was pounding. I was so scared. I was just like so in love with the imagery, with the atmosphere, with the ways in which Fede clearly has command of the camera and of that beautiful liminality that we love in Alien so much, the way that he frames the hallways, like all those little things in the teaser that felt so right. To me, the trailer says that's exactly what this movie is going to be. This movie is going to be right from the top to the bottom. And ever since then, our chat thread has been blowing up. Another reason my phone's dead, because we have been just, unpacking every single frame of every single moment in this amazing thing. And to me, this is like that ultimate Christmas morning moment as an Alien fan, where you are given something made with love and it's so exciting and it's so close to being really here. And now we get to be here with all of you talking about this in real time. And as fans around the world, we get to actually like have a moment together, which we haven't had in a very long time. So I'm really excited to hear what you have to say about it.
I love it, Patrick. I love the photos you sent us of like speeding home on your bike, and just the excitement in our chat was just it was awesome. I could taste it, right? Like it was, I felt like a kid again. I was at work. I had to go into the office today, but I truly was, as I've talked before, I didn't really get into like the Prometheus and Covenant marketing time before those films came out, and I just like wasn't in the loop during that time in the past, and although I obviously watched those films, it just wasn't the same for me like it is now, like being a part of this team, this family with you guys, and so it's just like it's awesome. Like I was breathless and like freaked out, and like the first, just the horrific images that you see in that trailer just like brought it home and like made me feel scared again. Just like I do like almost every time I watch Alien 3. I love that. I just loved sitting in that. I was like showing all my coworkers. I was like, hey, have you guys seen this? And what was great is some of my coworkers who I wouldn't think are into sci-fi at all are like, oh yeah, my buddies were talking about it and I saw this thing on Twitter and this and that, and I'm like, oh cool. It's like people remember this film, especially like people around our age, right? Like I feel like it's one of those legendary like monster horror films, right? Like the xenomorph, everybody knows that monster. And so to see like another addition to the franchise, it's just cool to see like other, I guess, people that I wouldn't think are really into that, aware of that too. So like that was just really fun to see. But one thing I will say is during this whole time, like waiting for the trailer and stuff, when you guys first initially invited me onto a roundtable back in the day, I think almost 4 years ago now, which is crazy to say. I talked about my buddy, my really good friend Chris from grade school, who I grew up and he had like all the NECA alien figures from his older brother, and that's how I really got introduced to him. And we played Aliens all the time, and we watched the movies together. And we have randomly reconnected on social media. He lives in Japan now, which is a whole other story, but it's really cool. And I was like messaging him today. I'm like, dude, the trailer's out. You got to check this out. And we've had this like resurrected friendship, which is really awesome. And I don't know if he'll listen to this episode, but I hope he is listening. And I want to shout out my good buddy Chris from grade school. But it's just awesome to get to share that with him again. So anyway, yeah, love it. Electrifying. Love to hear what everyone else has to say.
Same. I didn't get to see it quite as early or when you guys did because I was teaching. But the second I was done, I went into my prep room. I played it, realized it was probably a little too loud, especially when the F-bombs dropped, because there was a class going on the other side of the door. But I don't think they heard. It was all fine. And it dawned on me because just, annually, this time of year is my favorite. It's the end of the year. I have a long vacation ahead of me, right? And it dawned on me as the trailer ended and the date came up, and I was like, oh shit, it's coming out literally on the worst day for me, which is mid-August, is when I start having nightmares of going back to school. I'm not kidding. And so it dawned on me, like, you know what? This is going to like flip that switch. And I hopefully have nightmares for a different reason. And it's so exciting for me that I have something to look forward to in that time. It'll be like, I don't even think I'm going to be thinking about school, right? It's just something I'm really excited to. I did say first time through, I felt myself clutching like my like I gasped audibly at a certain scene and just felt it viscerally. And I was like, ooh, this is what I wanted to feel. So that was my initial reaction.
So, well, as you guys know, I've been practically eating, drinking, and sleeping Alien every single day for the past 5 years. In the past 4 years, more intensely. And like I told Jaime, when I was thinking of, should I come to Monster-Palooza? Should I not? This was before we had like a definite like meeting with Fede. But then I was like, fuck it. It's like, we're not going to have a period of time like the next few months, for another few years at least. All of the, the signs, the light signs were in the green from everyone that we heard. So I was like, I'm going to enjoy every bit of this that I can. And so that turned out incredibly well. And getting to the trailer, I had, because I'm so engrossed in this, in these films so much, I also was kind of like self-critical of, am I having too high of an expectations about this film? Trying to put some checks and balances on what I expect and what I don't expect. And I was very nervous, but from listening to Fede, I was very confident in him. And watching this trailer for the first time, I put it straight away on the TV screen, closed the curtains. I was having like going to church experience. And this was everything I hoped for and more. I was blown away by every single aspect, by the design, by even the acting looked good. We were worried about that because we had no sign about that. Like the pace, the every single, I could not have asked for a better trailer than this. And I know it's just a trailer. It's supposed to, to market the film. In this case, I'm confident we're in for a major, major treat. And if this trailer is, a sign for things to come, like this is nothing compared to the actual film. So I was blown away.
I was equally blown away. And again, as we got those photos, during the interim, I was definitely becoming a little bit nervous. And we've all been talking about this, like, oh yeah, okay. The photos seem flat. They don't seem, representative of what's in the film. But again, to an earlier point that I made, that I have been making since we knew Fede was directing this film, is in Fede I trust. I've been saying that since day one. But there have been a little bit of there's been some cracks around that based off those promo photos, and I'm like, oh, it was so many photos of like Kaylee Spaney with a gun. And I'm like, okay, like guns don't make like women cool. Like this, like what is this? What are these photos? But I also know that we've also discussed marketing a film like this is difficult. How do you market a film like this to Gen Z, Gen Y, Xennials, like people who didn't grow up with it like a lot of us did, or people who are maybe familiar with Aliens but they don't know much else, or there are people out there who've seen Covenant and Prometheus but they haven't seen a lot of the originals. How do you market a film like that to people? How do you get people to come to get into the theater? That's a difficult thing, and I think I can see in the marketing that we've seen so far that they're struggling. And oftentimes with marketing people, they're not that passionate. I mean, they're passionate about marketing maybe, but they don't really know what to do. So they get these photos and they go with it. And the studios hope that they can come up with a great marketing scheme. So that aside, I kind of brought that into my viewing of the trailer, and I woke up at like 6:30 this morning, checked YouTube, of course. Of course, it's not going to be there yet. And I just scrolled social media for a little while, okay, and then I went back to sleep. I woke up again at 7:30. I'm like, okay, checked YouTube again, nothing. Fell asleep. Woke up again at like 9:01, and everything had blown up. Everything had blown up, and it was really, really great. But I really watched the trailer in disbelief of what I was seeing in terms of, number one, the tone of it. There's not a lot of talking. There's no audible score. It's just ambience and silence. And I like, it feels like the world Ripley lived in. It just does. And that first couple of shots where you see the atmosphere processor, it looks so right. It wasn't like they could have done this and like, okay, yeah, that's an atmosphere processor, but it looks kind of strange. It looks perfect. It looks like Hadley's Hope. Like it, I even talking about it, it's hard for me to even talk about it. This world is so fucking amazing that he built, and everything is so dark, like in the best way possible. Like it's dark, it's visceral, it's quiet. This is not your mom's sci-fi film. I mean, or whatever. Like this is like a sci-fi film, except for Andie. This is like a sci-fi film for like hardcore geeks. This is just, again, everything that we see in this trailer is just jaw-dropping to me, jaw-dropping. Like I've continued to watch it and I'm like, oh. And just even the shots of the alien, it looks visceral. It looks terrifying. That last shot of the trailer where you see it like almost fully extended in its inner jaw. And I don't know if that girl is tied up. It looks like she might be. I'm not really sure what's going on, but it's right there. It's reminiscent of Ripley and Alien 3, but at the same time, like someone was like, oh, look, it's poetry. It's not really poetry. If an alien attacks you, it's going to look like when an alien attacks a lot of people. It's going to look the same. But just those moments of the creature, the moments inside the ship, the darkness, the quiet, just even the way that you see the actors acting, where those snippets of dialogue weren't over the top. They weren't overly expressive. They were just right. And that first few shots, I felt like also was in the world of Blade Runner. It felt like Blade Runner circa 2019. I've not seen the world of Blade Runner remade so perfectly before, but it's not Blade Runner. And it's also looks just like Hadley's Hope. Like, again, I cannot believe that he created this world. I can't believe that he did it so perfectly. So I'm excited.
I just want to say quick, because this is great, Jamie. It's just lovely to hear you talk about it in that way. And I just want to read what Xander threw in the chat. He said, I loved watching it. As the trailer ended, someone rang my doorbell, made me jump big time. Xander, we know you're a jumper. I was so excited about the awesome trailer that I forgot where I was. And so it's just like a testament to this trailer, right? Like how we all got sucked in for like 2 minutes. And to Fede's point, to what he said in the panel, is like, I'm hoping and knowing now that we're seeing this and from that feeling of forgetting where you are, that you're like, oh my God, is this real? You know, it's not real, but you're like, this is so dark and visceral, and the universe is being so well put together in this instance, and we're there. We're there. You're living in it. And as horrifying as that is, it's like Fede, you can just see how great of a job he's done putting this project together, to the props, the background, the costuming, the actors really put on awesome performance. And so that's awesome, Xander. that you forgot where you were, and Jamie, yeah, very cool. Christian, you're up.
So those first 7 seconds are what I've been waiting for months and months. I just have wanted to see this planet. I wanted to see the colony. And Fede has a pattern of how he, with the 3 movies that he's done of Evil Dead, Don't Breathe, and now Alien Romulus, of having young people who have to try to fix something in their lives. And so they take a great risk and go someplace they shouldn't go. And I knew that was going to be the kind of the pattern, and to just have that confirmed, but also like Jamie's saying, it's this beautiful amalgamation of both Blade Runner and Aliens. It has elements of the atmospheric processor from Aliens, but it's also, it seems larger, and it also seems like the processor is somehow also that the building, the housing for these people. And that makes sense because this is a set, not centuries. This is decades previous to even the establishment of the Hadley's Hope colony. So this would be an earlier version, but just the Venetian blinds, even, that's such a nice touch of like we rack focus from the blinds to what has to be either a model or CG, but in filmic language, you're telling us this is inside, this is outside, this is what we're looking at, and just creating that kind of a world. So my day job is making the Necronomicon. So I'm in a basement aging Necronomicon pages, doing a deep dive on Benjamin Wallfish's previous scores to get ready for this movie. And so I'm creeping myself out with It Chapter 1 and The Invisible Man. I kept turning around and looking because I've got headphones on to really hear it. So I was really in a good mood when suddenly my phone starts blowing up with all these guys watching this thing. And so I was able to watch it on my phone. Then I ran home and watched it on the television. Then I slowed it down and watched it on the television with subtitles, and then, watched it on the computer and took a huge bunch of screen caps. And so the subtitles have given us character names that we hadn't had previously. So going into this, we know there's a character named Bjorn, there's a character named Navarro. We've already known Kay and Rain and Andie and Tyler.
Yeah.
But to really have that established, like, yes, Tyler's the one who's convincing Rain that she should go do this. This is their way out, right? Andie is her android brother. We know this now, right? Like we see in the trailer, he has what I was jokingly calling the Mentat moment, where his eyes kind of flip up, and it's like he's accessing the computer system, with whatever the equivalent of Wi-Fi or Bluetooth is in this universe. Still trying to pinpoint. We know that Kay is Isabella Merced's character, but Navarro may be Eileen Wu's character. She's listed in the subtitles as having said things, but we don't ever see her talk. So that's kind of a little bit of a conundrum, but that's it for characters. We have our core group here now. Jamie was talking about how it's dark, and I 100% agree with that, except for the parts where it's not dark. And almost every scene is just so gorgeously lit. The sunlight coming through the shuttle's window as Rain is looking out at the station, or the pulsating orange red lights in the hallways, just on and on. Or we're just getting into it. We're just going to get into everything that just happened, but we're going to be gushing. We're just so excited, right?
Oh, hell yeah. Just to those lights, Christian, for a moment. I got big shades of Alex White's The Cold Forge, which famously the RB-232 ship that they spend much of the novel on has lighting to guide you down the hallways, and it's kind of becomes a plot device. And that same attention to detail, I don't know if Fede or his co-screenwriter necessarily read Alex's books, but it feels like it's of that same world, the way that they're navigating the ship. Just let's just kind of get into it. So I love that you're pointing out the Venetian blinds in the beginning, because that didn't register to me until like 6 viewings in. Like I was so fixated on the processor behind them. But you're right. And what it does is it gives such a beautiful sense of not only space, like you beautifully said, but scale, right? Like we're sort of primed to think of this thing as being massive. And when we see them in Aliens, as you pointed out, Aliens is later, it's a couple decades in the future. They're kind of shake and bake colonies by that point, right? They've done this a lot. They kind of understand how it works. You get a real sense of like the monolithic, enormous, almost Tyrell building-esque form factor that these things had before they were like perfected. And you see the ionization of the atmosphere. How fucking cool is that? That's something else that I think is so cool, that when you leave the blinds behind and you kind of go to that low angle shot and you look up and there's thunderstorms ripping through the atmosphere. because it's being processed by this giant thing that is like inefficient and terrifying and beautiful. I just love that. And then like you pointed out also the shots of like the dust belt, orbiting the planet, like these just incredible establishing shots that I know in some way have to be CG or digital, compositing. Obviously that's happening. You can't make a fake thunderstorm look like that. But I really get a sense that there's physical model work also involved in a lot of these things. And that and you get a real sense of that, the tactile feel, which goes back to Alien Isolation. Like Adam pointed out and beautifully asked during the panel interview, like isolation is all over this thing. That same sense of tactile, of touch, of space, of dimension, of claustrophobia. Like this is so claustrophobic. That's something else that I love. That's something that most Alien filmmakers have forgotten about for some reason. And I include Ridley Scott in that. So the original film was frequently talked about as being a claustrophobic tale, right? Aliens goes on to play with that somewhat, Alien 3 somewhat, and then it kind of becomes like, well, you're just kind of being chased down whatever hallway it is. But this one, there's the fetishization of the claustrophobic. There's all of these beautiful shots where it's clear that there's only one way out, and that way is probably a bad call, right? You have to make. There's the underwater sequence, which is so scary. All of this sense of the walls kind of closing in very gradually. And anybody who's seen Fede's other films knows that really is his modus operandi, that he loves to put characters in very tight spaces and to do very difficult things to them in those spaces. Well, I'll keep going through it a little bit, and then, we'll all kind of jump in and share some of our thoughts. And we might end up going sequentially. We'll see how that goes. I don't know. But just because this is an exciting night, let's just kind of like take the wheels off and see what we get to. I love the creature design in this. I think it is fucking great. It is very practical and it's very confusing. And that is, I think, probably the best part of all. The fact that all of us have been freezing frames all day trying to figure out what we're looking at. There are certain sequences I still don't actually know what I'm seeing. Like I truly don't actually know morphologically what I'm looking at. When's the last time we've had that in an Alien movie? I guess the neomorph, but even in that case, we could kind of tell what it was. I really truly don't know what I'm looking at in this. I don't know what's going on with those eggs in that vertical chamber shaft. Like I don't know what I'm looking at. And I love that. And I get the sense that when we actually encounter these things in the film, like we're still not actually going to know what we're seeing. And we may never really totally figure it out. Even as answers come, it might still be just confusing and unsettling and claustrophobic and disorienting. And to me, those are all adjectives that I need Alien to have. Another adjective that I need Alien to have is incomprehensibility in general. I think the best Alien stories are the ones that end up making me feel the most lost and the most afraid and the most unable to tell what's going on. And I love how, as you get to the sort of the like orgiastic, climax of this thing, and all the sound cuts out except for that tinnitus playing in the background. That's a moment like that where I'm like, oh my God, I'm so scared and I don't know what's going on. And everybody's screaming and I don't know what they're screaming about, but I can't wait to be screaming with them. That sense of I can't understand what I'm looking at and I'm so afraid right now, to me, is what really makes Alien feel correct. And I feel like this whole trailer is structured in a way that pays homage to that in such a beautiful way. Yeah, I'll stop for now. Other than to say, as Christian was mentioning, Benjamin Wallfish is scoring this. That's something that, even if this trailer hadn't come out as masterfully as it has, which it has, I would be so excited about, because he has turned in such great work in so many different places, but especially his horror scores are so scary and so evocative. And just the thought of seeing this footage again in the movie theater with Benjamin Wallfish's fucking music behind it, oh my God.
So I have to say, the thing that stuck out with me too, when you guys mentioned acting, I was pleasantly surprised by how scared these people looked. And I believed every one of their faces, the screams or the silent screams. I believed them. I believed they were absolutely horrified, and that scared me. And we've talked about this, certain moments in Covenant where we're like, there's no urgency, or obviously in the beginning that was frightening, but later on we get some moments where we're like, are they really aware of what's happening? And here you feel that utter terror. And so that elevated it for me. And also, like you said, somebody was saying, the dialogue, I loved how it was simple. We didn't get esoteric questions about the meaning of life and some like awkward, cliched sentence or some random thing. Like these are kids, right? And they're scared, and we just got reactions, and we got like what these kids would sound like. And who knows what we're going to get beyond that. I liked that what we did get was sparse, but just in the moment and just utterly terrified. So to me, I was the one thing that I was worried about, not the effects, not what it was going to look like, just the acting. Because I'm not really familiar with these people. And from what I've seen, I think I'm going to be pleasantly surprised.
On that note, I know, Andie, that you've seen the panel with Fede and Alec. Fede talked about watching a film with somewhat unknowns and what that was like for the first film, and how he wanted to approach this similarly. And Kaylee Spaney is probably the only person who is a rising star, somewhat like Sigourney Weaver was at that point. It's also interesting. We don't know I don't know if there's going to be a final girl, final person in this. We have the sense that it might be Kaylee Spaney. It might not be either. That's another, and to your point, Patrick, about like the confusion. You don't really know what's happening. You don't know, like we've seen a lot of Kaylee Spaney, but that doesn't mean she's the survivor of this, if there is a survivor. And I love that. And I don't know if there's any type of, maybe not misinformation, but like subterfuge or misdirection from Fede and the people who cut this trailer. But I don't know what's going on. And I also love that in an age where we see entire films and trailers, we saw a lot in this trailer and we know nothing. We don't know anything. We know that there's some kids on a ship headed somewhere else. That's it. And I love that. And they could have created this trailer like studios create every other trailer, which is lots of music, lots of exposition, lots of talking, point A to point B to point C, and that's it. And we saw none of that. And that was a fear of mine as well, that we would see too much. And I've heard a couple people saying, oh, they showed too much. And I don't think that they did. Because I don't think anything's in context. Like, I don't know what they showed too much of. I mean, I didn't necessarily need to see an alien again, but it's called Alien. We know they're in it. Doesn't matter. They looked amazing. It was great to see them. But aside from that, it's a little bit of a miracle, just this trailer itself. And I'm so happy that they decided to not go the expected route, so that we kind of know what we're seeing. And to one point that you made, Patrick, about Wallfish, I love Ben Wallfish. Of course, the score for 2049 is one of my favorites. I'm hopeful that this score for this film follows trend with the original trilogy, where Goldsmith and Horner for sure, but also Goldenthal created scores that weren't relying upon, like Goldenthal's work did not rely upon Goldsmith's work. There were no hints of Alien in the Alien 3 score. There were no real hints of the Alien score in the Alien score. Everyone did their own thing. And I would love it if Ben Wallfish for this film really was able to do his own thing and create something haunting and atmospheric and beautiful. But at the same time, in that panel, Fede said a great thing. He said, I hate music that tells you how to feel. And I feel like even with Alien 3 and Alien, and like even Aliens, it's an action-oriented score because there's a lot going on, but none of those scores really tell you how to feel. They set a mood, but they don't tell you how to feel. And I really hope Wallfish is able to do that and not have to tip his hat back to Goldsmith over and over and over, because that was something I did not like about Jed Kurzel's score, but I'm really excited about it. Are you interested in even more from Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast? We have hundreds of hours of discussion and film reviews just waiting for you to dive into. Go to www.perfectorganism.com/support and sign up for our Patreon starting at just $4 a month. Your membership will give you access to Frame Rate, our Patreon exclusive film review show, and our newly launched Hive Experience, where we cover the Alien Extended Universe, Blade Runner, and beyond. Join us.
Oh, and another thing that I really loved and really comes through really well in this trailer is that the layering. It seems like they're just like in the first two films. There's so much going on in every in every frame, and it makes sense. It doesn't look like it's, dressed to look like that. It looks real, it looks believable, it looks used. I love, we're talking about those still photos where everything looks like it too lit up and clean and everything. Like there's so much, rain and sweat and grease and blood and tears in this trailer. It's fantastic. Those cues are absolutely there, and it's beautiful.
Yes, Adam, I agree. I loved everything about it. I love the whole environment, the pacing of the trailer. Like it just, as we said before, like just sucked you in, and the universe is so horrifying. Like Andie, to your point, like talking about the acting, like which is something that my background is in, and it's just like so great to see some true horror in these characters and them portraying it very realistically. Like I guess that's one thing you can see kind of a juxtaposition in Prometheus is like one of my favorite scenes in that film is the most uncomfortable scene where Shaw is in the med bay thing and the trilobites getting like taken out of her. But the first time I saw the film, that was so uncomfortable to watch, as I'm sure it was for everyone. But she does such a good job at that, making that feel very real. On the flip side of that, the Hammerpeed scene with I can't remember the character's name, but when it wraps around his arm and he's like, "Oh my God, it's breaking my arm, it's breaking my arm." I'm like, dude, yeah, we could see that, right? But it was like so unbelievable to my point. And so one of the scenes that is just like burned in my brain from the trailer is to Isabella Merced, right? She's holding Navarro's character, right? Is that who's getting chest burst and she's just like crying, and Patrick, we're hearing that tinnitus. Am I saying that right? Yeah.
It's actually I've been corrected. It's tinnitus, but I refuse to say that. So we're gonna say
tinnitus. But that was horrifying. Just the way they cut it with that, right? But you could see in that, and I'm sure we'll get the actual audio during that scene. But I'm sure that is just going to be horrifying, and it looks that way. And I'm just like, yes, that's awesome, because I want it to feel so real. Because I too would like to be on that ship exploring with all of them. But I loved like just everyone knows that like my big thing is like getting a looking glass eye into like a little background of the company. So like I hope we get to see some of that with like the face huggers, right? Or the eggs, right? Like coming out of like unfreezing, or they're like breaking through that glass and the face huggers come out or something. What are they doing? Are they experimenting on them? Were they like transporting these eggs somewhere? Were they supposed to go somewhere else? Like that is like scary enough. Like what is the company doing in the background that's like now killing these innocent people, right? That are just coming across this and like getting to see all that, the acid and in the zero gravity, like that's gonna be cool. What is behind that scene? Like how do we lead up to that? The android piece, Christian, the Mentat thing, like patching in, that's really cool. It almost kind of reminds me of like Call from Resurrection a little bit when they're like in the church and she like, pulls her little mole out. Oh my God. Anyway, but this looks way cooler than that. But just curious to see like what that's all about. And yeah, did they read Alex's books, and like do we get a little bit more into like, is someone patching into the android maybe to, I don't know, to tell them something or save them from something or whatever. I don't know. But like I agree with you, Jamie. Like we got there, the trailer showed us a lot of imagery, but there's so much mystery behind it. And that's what I love. And that's what I love about Alien in the first place, is like the mystery behind the space jockey. And granted, that film is probably much more slower pacing than this, at least the setup. Because we know everything now, but I really hope Fede held on to some of that, the mystery behind that. I just love that, and I hope we get to live in that a little bit more. And I definitely feel that from this trailer. But yeah, I'll stop there.
I don't know if Kaylee Spaney is actually going to be the main character. She clearly is part of how we get into this story, her relationship with her android brother Andie, things like that. And of course, I think she was nominated for an Academy Award for her performance as Priscilla Presley this past year. So I mean, she's an up and coming star for sure. But you can't deny in this trailer we see her. Here she is in a jacket. Here she is without the jacket. Here she is with a proto pulse rifle. Here's a still photo of her with this weird, maybe it's a flamethrower, maybe it's not. Here she is in a spacesuit. Here she is floating. Like, she's in a lot of this movie without a doubt. And I'm trying to figure out how to make all of those pieces fit together, especially the two different weapons. Like, how does she lose one and pick the other one up? Or, and then it's funny because we associate spacesuits with zero gravity, being outside of a station or something, but they're clearly having a zero gravity situation inside the station. They're not floating outside. There's still atmosphere. They just don't have the artificial gravity that we assume is there because it's science fiction. And it's kind of fun throughout the trailer to look for where there is gravity and where there isn't gravity, and also bring back the things that we saw in the teaser trailer, because there's a few moments there as well. So I don't know. I'm very interested. I'm tracking other characters for the same reason. Like Eileen Wu's character, who may or may not be Navarro. We see so many things happen to this lady, and it's trying to tell us this is how this plays out. You absolutely get her face hugged in a teaser. The poster is her, and Eileen Wu shared this on Instagram and wrote, "I give the best hugs," which I thought was great. And then this one, we double down on seeing her get face hugged. We also have the amazing scene with a medical scanner, which has a modern Weyland-Yutani logo. I wanted to point that out. Putting it on her back and seeing a chest burster through her ribs. And then, as Perry said, we see Isabella Merced's character holding her, with her eyes closed, and Isabella has blood splashed all over her. So this is telling a story, but is it truly the story that's happening? That's what we're trying to figure out.
We've been, there's this kind of running bet going on in the PO group right now that many of us are on the side that Eileen Wu's character will somehow be like as close to a last survivor as we get. There's also shots in this that suggest that there's no survivors, but that's beside the point. I have to say, like, if she is not dying in that sequence, then this is a very committed act of subterfuge on Fede's part, because she has been like the sacrificial character in every piece of promotional material for this thing from the very beginning. But hey, you never know. There's a famous, I don't know, but Isabella Merced, in one of the interviews that she did with Variety, maybe, was saying there was a sequence that really grossed everybody out. I think we're seeing that sequence in this. I don't know exactly what's happening, but there's a moment where it looks like Rain is over her trying to like calm her down, and she's kind of screaming and looking down, like down her body. She's like laying flat. And I don't know, it has kind of like a birth feel, which is I think could potentially be where that body horror is heading. I would love to see what that's going to be like, because if it's Fede Alvarez filming some kind of a nightmare birth sequence, I mean, that's the thing too, is that all of this is in the context of knowing what Fede is capable of, and Fede is capable of scaring the absolute shit out of us. So all these things that like look right and feel like they're, in service of Alien, they're also in the context of it's going to be so scary. Just to the characters for a moment, I really love the naturalism, and that is something that Covenant lacks very much, in my opinion. I think it's something that Prometheus has never been acquainted with in its entire lifetime. There's this beautiful naturalism in Alien that we talk about all the time. And I think Aliens is somewhat performative, but it's still naturalistic. There's still banter and things like that. And Alien 3, I think, too. And I think part of why those three films feel so correct to us is because they feel like people who actually exist in this environment. And because they feel like that, we feel like the environment itself exists, which is kind of hard to pull off. I get that like right away, right from the very beginning, when Rain is talking, I think, to Tyler, right? Yeah, and he's saying, is this really where you want to spend the rest of your life? And she's like, I don't. That moment, to me, you get ready. There's going to be a lot of bad Pat Green accents coming out on this new film. There's something in the war. Get out of the war. That moment to me is so fucking right for some reason. And I think a lot of it is Kaylee Spaney. Like now we have seen her in so many things. The first time that I saw her was Devs, which I'm obsessed with, and she was incredible in. And then I was like, maybe that was like a fluke, who knows? And then we saw her in Priscilla, and she won, I believe, won the Golden Globe for that film. Was like universally, applauded for her role, got Academy Award nominated, as Christian pointed out. And then we saw her in Civil War recently, which is probably about as close to an alien film as you can get. That's not an alien film in terms of the absolute like fear and the terror and the shock. And she does like such a good job in that movie of being kind of the vessel through which we experience it, because she is, she's the one whose kind of journey we latch onto as an audience, and all of the chaos kind of coalesces around her in a really amazing way that is really like leading lady quality to me. And like Sigourney. And I think what's amazing is that in Romulus, like regardless of if she, is the final girl character or whatever, like we're going to see this truly great emerging young actress in a role that seems to be like really playing to her strengths, which are many and varied and still emerging. I think that this will be a huge moment for her. And I think for Isabella Merced, who I think, I almost feel like because she did the Dora the Explorer movie, has always had this kind of like weird cloud around her for me, where like I can't like separate her from that for some reason. I have to say, everything that I've seen of her since, like I don't see Dora the Explorer like anywhere. I think she is so believable in the footage that we have of her. She seems like she's like in some ways kind of like the heart of this film. I love that. And I just love, Tyler. I love who's the guy that Spike Fern is playing? Bjorn, that when he's trying to get him out of the water, like the fear on his face when the hugger is trying to like latch onto him, like that is, if that's who the hugger's latching onto, maybe that's Bjorn, I don't know, whatever. That is so scary to me, and it's really hard to do that. So I can't wait to see this freaking movie.
That scene, that moment with the medical thing that she uses to look at, that is terrifying. And then there's another scene which a little bit references the Red Band trailer for the teaser, where there's a face hugger that's trying to get on Tyler's face, and you see it's like proboscis kind of fall out of his, like it's disgusting. But what's different is like in the teaser, the Red Band teaser, you see a very large proboscis being pulled out of Eileen Wu's character's mouth, but the one for Tyler is much smaller. Like that facehugger seems affected. It seems like something's wrong with it. Like I don't know. It's just something seems up with it in the situation. But of course, it reminds me of the med lab. It's red. There's like water going on everywhere. It's gross. It's a little bit perverse, but that's what Giger is. That's what this whole aesthetic is. I'm so excited about it. Like, and there's a moment in there as well where you see, I don't know if it's a dome, a xenodome or whatever, busting through something, and it's obviously the color of the beast is darker, but whatever it's busting through is lighter, like skin color or something. But I don't know what it is, but it's freaky and weird.
I've been reading and just seeing a lot of people's comments, but I think a lot of people's opinions about what we're seeing is possibly a full life cycle. We'll get to see a full life cycle happening. Kind of similarly to, you see a little bit in Alien 3 or a little bit more, especially in the vent shaft, where with the boot gets acid in his eyes. Why can't I think of his name now? I was gonna do the accent, Patrick.
He was a wanker.
But anyway, yeah, that's his boot. Murphy, that's his boot. Anyway, I think the eggs, Jamie, to your point, are the face huggers. Could they be growing the egg or like nurturing the eggs to full growth, and they spit these face huggers out, and they could be like baby face huggers? I know that term sounds
it did look
stupid,
smaller,
but you know what
didn't
I
it?
mean? Like
It looks
like
small.
maybe they're not. Yeah, because it seems like the way he pulls it off his face is very easy, and I'm like, I hope that's not the case where they're just like he's easily able to like defend himself against it. But it would make sense if they are like, or they just got woken up. So say the thing's kind of groggy, it's going after him, obviously. But and I know he's in water and all that, and I guess that's similar to Alien Resurrection. But yeah, it just would be cool, like I said, to get a little insight into like what they were doing on that ship, or maybe not. Maybe that stays mysterious, and I'm like, oh, what are they doing? And I have to think about it and come up with all these horrific, nightmarish ideas about what was going on there, which is also really cool. But yeah, I just wanted to bring that up because I know some folks online have been talking about us possibly getting to see that, and I think maybe we see a full growing life cycle with the xenomorph, which would be cool. And Patrick, I swear to God, it better be hot, because we talked about how much heat those things put off.
That's the first thing I was looking for. It's like there's gotta be condensation.
Yeah. Yes.
I saw multiple people today grumbling about what they refer to as flying facehuggers. I'm so sick of these flying facehuggers, and I am at a loss for understanding, how do you think it got out of the egg against Kane? It jumps. They coil the tail and they jump. They do something. We see this exact motion happen with Ripley in MedLab. Like, there's no flying. It has the ability to, like a cat, it kind of, crouches down and then it jumps. But people are like, oh, all these facehuggers are flying. And am I alone in wanting to defend what we're seeing in this trailer?
If you have to defend that from someone, no, they're not fans. They don't give a shit. They're just there to make trouble.
Trolls attention.
Right.
It's also worth mentioning, also from the panel we had, that what we're seeing here, all the visual effects, we're having like the cream of the crop of visual effects personnel and companies. And Fede mentioned like Weather Workshop out of New Zealand is on this film. Legacy Effects, ILM, Phil Tippett did stop motion. Stan Winston Studio, like he got the best of the best. Like that's and we're only seeing like this 2 minutes and half a minute of the teaser. So we're seeing like a very short like snippet frame of time in this in these the teaser and the trailer. Yeah. And another thing I also wanted to mention is after I watched the trailer a few times, then there's an arc throughout the trailer. There's no music, but there's that sound that starts in the beginning. And Andie, I think you mentioned that that it's the sound of the you got onto that, the sound of like the ribs cracking. It gets louder and louder and louder, and then this the in space no one can hear you stop, and then it's silence for like 20 seconds with amazing visuals. Like there's an arc throughout the trailer, which I also love. It took me a few viewings to see that, but I thought that was brilliant. That's also Fede like telling us something, which was absolutely beautiful. And I think this tagline is fantastic. In space no one can hear you, period.
I'm glad it's not on the poster. I don't care for that. But it's just feels like a reductive version of a much there's no better tagline than in space no one can hear you scream. That's an amazing tagline. And I feel like chopping the end off it, it still beats the ones for Aliens. Aliens has terrible taglines, and so does Alien 3. So does Resurrection even have one? I don't know.
I think if I had to like reason the story behind this, I think that Fede didn't want to have a tagline. Marketing department forced him to put the tagline in the trailer, and that's what it is, if I had to guess. Another thing, if I have a few seconds, that I loved is that in the scene where we see the actor playing the android, and he's looking at something, and he stands up and he looks, and his eye twitches for a flick of a second, and that brought me straight back to when Bishop says, "Oh, the A2s or something like that always were a bit twitchy when talking about the Ash models, the older models." And I was like, okay, he's an android. Why does his eye twitch? Because they're twitchy. So that also adds, does he work for the company like Ash did? Is he also, in addition to all the monsters on the station, is he, also like a betrayer from within?
And we have that moment where he says, "Run." And it's it reads pretty malevolent, I think, but I don't want it to be, and I kind of feel like it's not going to be. I think that might be misdirection, but the way that moment landed both in the teaser and in this gave me chills. I love that actor is so good. I can already tell. Kind of scary moment.
That one moment with him, he's standing on like a bridge or somewhere, and it's like I think there's like a railing, but you see behind him, it reminded me of the Blair Witch, that last shot you see of him in the corner. And I'm thinking, what's he staring at? He's staring into absolute darkness. And you don't like that to me, because you don't know what's beyond him. That is terrifying to me. I'm getting goosebumps even talking about it. And I love that this is happening to me with an Alien film, because what I've really wanted is to be scared again. I want to go in an Alien film and be terrified. And the fact that images in this 2-minute trailer are giving me goosebumps, that doesn't happen to me. And I watch a lot of horror films to be scared. So I'm ready for it. I'm ready for whatever it is he did to scare us. And I also think that there is, to your point, Adam, there is an arc in this. Like, there's a little bit of a story. He's telling us portions of this story in the trailer. Yeah, it's quite something.
We can't trust that any of the audio, unless we see the mouths matching the audio, you can't trust that that's where it's from. You can't trust the order that things are in. He's definitely playing around with how he's presenting all of this. It's a mood piece more than a linear narrative. And one of the big ones for me with that is we see Renaissance Station, the space station, crashing into the rings. And there's clearly a lot of damage. And this kind of echoes something that was in the teaser trailer of seeing their shuttle seem to hit. But is that what we're seeing? Is this from the third act of the film, or is this something, this station appears to be derelict at this point? Is this something that happened earlier, and that's why the station is no longer operational or manned, right? And then to add to that, in that scene where you see the space station hitting the rings, a big piece of ice, you can actually see the same style of shuttle as the Narcissus off to the far right. Adam Zeller from the Alien vs. Predator Galaxy podcast was the one who first noticed this, and he actually took it up the food chain and asked somebody, and someone from production confirmed this is not the Narcissus. These are the standard shuttles that you'd find on any of these kinds of ships or stations or whatnot. So, because for a hot minute, there was like, wait a minute, why would the Narcissus be on the space station? We've all read Out of the Shadows. We do not want Ripley on this space station, please God. So it's just a nice little homage, nice little nod. But again, we don't know. Is this at the beginning of the film as the setup for why the station isn't operational, or are we seeing a little bit of Act 3 of the movie?
It might be just before the double ending.
I love that this, on the outside, is an inverse of Alien, where in Alien, and I've mentioned this before, you have these people go down on a planet and discover a derelict alien craft. Now we have humans go up and find a derelict human craft, and they, for all intents and purposes, experience something very similar. I just like that. I like that he's flipped it around a little bit. And to something that Xander brought up in our chat, he asked us about what do we think about the locations, because there's been some criticisms about it feeling like we've seen this before. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's sci-fi. It's set in space. Where else are we supposed to, like, where else is this? We've been on planets. We've been in ships. We've been on space stations. We've actually never had an alien film set on a space station. We've seen Gateway. There's Isolation, but this would be the first time an alien film is set on a station. I mean, the Auriga in Resurrection was huge. The Auriga, you could call it a space station, but it wasn't a space station. It was just a very large ship, a military ship. This is a space station. So I don't have any problem with the location. And at the same time, people are going to bitch about everything. You give them an opportunity, they will complain over and over and over. So I don't put too much stock in that. Whatever.
Those same people probably hate Star Wars too. They go to all the same planets again, every movie. Unbelievable.
It's funny you bring that up, because this, for me, and I think probably I said this in the last one, this feels like Rogue One, which is my favorite of the new Star Wars films, because instead of saying, let's go to a brand new planet or try a whole new design style like J.J. Abrams would do, it was like, hold on, what if we tell this small story in the design language of the original films? Sometimes in the same location, sometimes not, but just continue that look and honor the creative people that designed that, right? So here we are doing a very similar thing of saying, okay, aliens, those are two different design languages, but they're complementary. What if we make a melding of the two? And by doing that, you're paying homage to a whole pile of people who came before. And then to add to that Fede brought some of them back to work on this film. I just think it's amazing. And some people are saying, oh, it's a trope fest or it's reductive or whatever. And I really don't believe that. I think that grounding a story in the world that it came from, we're not on LV-426. We're not on Gateway Station. We're on a new planet with a new space station. It just happens to have a similar design language. And when if you take any still from this trailer and you put it next to any shot of the Nostromo hallways, these are not identical. They are very, very similar, but new people have had a chance to do new creative things with that language, the same as Alien Isolation did, actually. And so we're expanding the world in a way that continues that DNA, but we're absolutely in new territory here. And I truly believe, like Fede said about the teaser trailer, he still hasn't put the best stuff into this. He's found ways to give us just breadcrumbs. But what we're going to see in 2 months is going to blow our minds.
These are the breadcrumbs that are scaring us. Like, I can't wait, because some of this imagery, like Jaime, I think you said it right in the beginning. I feel like some of it's already iconic, right? Like that scene, just the chess scene with the light from behind. And one more thing about that scene, what scared me the most was not actually seeing that. It was seeing the look on Isabel Merced's face and imagining myself as the woman, Alien Wu, with that in me, and just seeing that somebody look at me like that is horrifying. When you're little and like you do something wrong and like somebody looks at you and you're like, oh, and you're like, what's going, like you're bleeding or something and you don't know it. That's that terror of like, what's happening? So I just think if this is just like the sliver of what we're going to get, I think we're all going to be like, I don't know, we're all going to be together, right? We're all going to be like holding hands. I don't know. I'm going to be scared for sure. Our popcorn buckets of our egg buckets or whatever are going to like be flying. I'm hoping.
And that, I think, just as we kind of come to a close here soonish, I think it's something that it is the thing I'm most excited about, is that we get to do this together. And I don't just mean the people on this call right now. I mean everybody listening to this all around the world, all the people online who have been just chirping all day long with excitement about this. Like we're gonna all do this together in August, in a couple of months from now, and like I've said a number of times, like there's no going back. You know what I mean? Like this is something where like we are on that roller coaster going up now to the hill, and like this thing it's coming. Like there's no getting off, and I think that's like such a wonderful experience for an Alien fan to have, and it's one that I think we've all been waiting for such a long time. Before I hand it off to anybody who has any closing thoughts, just two quick housekeeping things. We did not do patrons this time because this is sort of like an impromptu episode. We have a bunch of new patrons. Thank you for joining. You'll get shout outs next time. And also we're going to do a new little feature where we're going to choose one 5-star review from Apple Podcasts to read every episode. And we encourage you to make them as funny as possible. So go ahead and write whatever you want. But if it's a 5-star review, we will select one, and Christian will be reading that at the beginning of episodes from now on, because that's a really good way to help us get more listeners. And it's also just kind of a fun moment to kind of interact, get your voice on the air with us. So yeah, I'll hand it off. If anybody has anything else they'd like to add before we wrap.
The last thing that I want to say is automatically or right away, I feel like Romulus is bigger. Like Fede has already made the world. Like it feels bigger than Alien, like just bigger, like a bigger world. He's created some things with the help of his crew and the actors and everyone behind the film to really build out this world, because that's what you do now. That's what they can do. There's been enough Alien films and books and lore that they can build out this world, and the world feels built out to me in a way. Just that, again, just a snippet of the atmosphere processor and just some of the snippets of the ships. Like I feel like, well, this world is large, and we've always just seen these small stories, whether it's on the Nostromo, in Fury 161, or even on, LV-426 in Aliens. They're small sets, essentially. Not that the sets are small, but like the small, very intimate spaces with these people, but at least the beginning of Romulus, it feels expansive, and I can't wait to see what else that they've created for it.
I just want to defend Fede quickly before we get off, but just for any naysayer out there or just people who are coming at this trailer or photos or anything that's coming out and is really, I hate to say the word hating, but or just like not confident in what we are going to see. That's fine. Feel that way. I just urge you to like do a little bit of homework before you comment on social media about things that we might be excited about. Because I think truly like there was an awesome team of people behind this project. We've interviewed some of them. Jaime and Adam, I mean, you went and met Fede, like watch the panel at Monster-Palooza. It's on YouTube. Watch some of Fede's older films again. Evil Dead, Don't Breathe. Listen to his podcast on Apple Music, right? Patrick Calls. Is that what it's called?
Well, it's on Apple TV. It's a visual series based on
it's a show. It's an audio show. It's an audio
Sorry,
drama.
that's what I meant.
Yeah, it's confusing because it's an audio show, but it's on a visual medium. Like they animate the audio files. It's really, really good.
Yeah, thank you. I just like implore people to really do that because I know we're going along a journey with someone who has done his homework, who is experienced, who said it himself. Like it's not like he's trying to crank out a movie every 6 months, every year, and just like on to the next IP. Like he's specific with what he wants to do, and he's passionate about that. And just listening to him talk about it is so heartwarming and heart-filling, and just you can see that when you see all of that and watch all of that and know where it's coming from, and then you watch this trailer and you have whatever experience you maybe had in your younger years, seeing Alien for the first time, seeing any of those films. I think that is why we feel, and I know myself, feel a lot of confidence with what we are going to see. And I'm just really hopeful that it's going to add just a wonderful addition to this universe.
Amen.
I just want to add, because I was just in the chat telling the guys about my children's comments. My older daughter said, "It's giving," just like that. And my younger one was like, "Oh yeah, I'm watching that." Because there was some debate about whether we should go in the theater to see it with her. And her first thing was like, "Yep, I'm watching it." So I mean, I know I've exposed them because I'm such a fan, but I really do think the younger generation, like this might pull in some of those kids. When Fede was talking about seeing as a 12-year-old, I feel like 12 was the magic number, right? I don't know. That's when I saw it. But I feel like, maybe for some kids it's too much, but we all got locked in at a certain age. And I think that is the magic moment of movies. I was actually reading somewhere where there's like a range of music in movies from like 10 to 15 or something, where those will always mean the most to you. Like those are like the height of what you experience. So, I mean, is that the age range for this film? No, but we all saw it when we were that age. So I feel like this is, more than any of the other ones, the one that maybe will carry it on for next generations, future generations.
I just wanted to add, yeah, that he had such a gargantuan task with this film. It's like it had to be I'm not sure if the right word is cater, but for like the 40, 50-year-old fan who saw this film when he was 12, and we would never have that same experience like when we were 12 years old. And at the same time, this is another opportunity to introduce a new audience, a young audience to this franchise. And so this is an incredibly difficult task to accomplish. And all the signs show that he might have I mean, we'll know when we see the film, but everything looks great.
Last thing I'm going to say before we close is I've seen all of Fede's films. I've listened to his show on Apple. He is the only director right now. He hasn't made a lot of stuff, but I've loved everything. He also did The Girl in the Spider's Web with Sylvia Hex from Blade Runner 2049. Highly recommend that film. I really enjoyed it. It wasn't that successful in terms of its box office, but it's a really well-made, good film. And to have a director, I feel this way about Denis Villeneuve as well. He's not made a bad film. He just hasn't. Like every film Denis has made he's knocked out of the park. And in my opinion, Fede is in that same boat. And I think he's in that same boat because like Denis, every project he approaches holistically. He's not a production house like you were saying, Adam, like next thing, what's the next one? 6 months later, he's doing something else. And while he's doing that other thing, he's talking about he really throws all of himself into the projects that he chooses. And to have that person be at the helm of an Alien film, and to really understand the responsibility that is in his lap, that is in his hands, is a profound thing. And I really hope, first of all, I hope the film is good. I feel like it will be, but I hope it's really, really wildly successful. But it's been really exciting to be on this journey with all of you and of course our listeners. And there's more to come. San Diego Comic-Con is coming up next month. Patrick and Christian and I will all be there to cover the Romulus stuff, and Weta's going to be there, and NECA's going to be there, and I know that they're going to unveil a couple of things while we're there. It's going to be a really fun time, and I can't wait till August till we're all together as a podcast team to go and see this film. It's going to be amazing. So thank you guys so much.
Happy trailer day, everybody.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Thanks,
Happy
everyone.
trailer day.
Bye.
For more on Perfect Organism, the Alien Saga podcast, please visit perfectorganism.com. Perfect Organism is available for listen or download through Podbean, iTunes, Google Play, TuneIn, and Spotify. If you'd like to support the show, please visit perfectorganism.com/support. Thank you.